Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Atlanta, Georgia, it's time for Atlanta Business Radio. Brought to you by OnPay. Built in Atlanta, OnPay is the top-rated payroll and HR software anywhere. Get 1 month free at onpay.com. Now, here's your host.
Lee Cantor here, another episode of Atlanta Business Radio, and this is going to be a good one. And remember, we could not be doing this work without the support of our sponsor, OnPay. So please support them so we can continue to share these stories. Today on Atlanta Business Radio, we have Bishop Dedric Avery with the Salt and Light Truth Center. Welcome, Dedric.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
Well, before we get too far into things, tell us about the Salt and Light Truth Center. How are you serving folks?
The Salt and Light Truth Center is a progressive congregation in the Decatur, Georgia area. It's comprised of multi-generational membership, and we definitely desire to make a difference. Our tagline is being in position to influence the condition. So we like to empower people in the area of influence to influence their circle of influences.
Now, did you start this center, or was this existing and then you joined them?
Yes, I actually planted the organization in 2004, January 4th.
Now, what compelled you to do that?
Well, it was just a burning desire to make a difference. And I know that I was groomed for transformational leadership, and I wanted to really create a special environment where people could really come in and without the bureaucracy and politics and really have a spiritual experience from the Pierce Forum.
Now, a lot of people say that, hey, that's something I'd love to make a difference. I'd like to do something like that. But to actually, kind of lead and create an organization like that, what are kind of some of the early steps you have to do to even, kind of just get this off the ground? Like, do you have to find kind of allies in the sense of I got to find other people that think like I think that want to get involved? Or did you just go at this alone? Like, how did it, the actual kind of genesis of
I had a group of people that I call it my starter group. They were just in place to help me get off the ground, because the first thing you have to have is a message. If your message is solid and people buy in, they'll do anything to help you advance it. And if they know that your motives are pure, they'll help you.
So when did the message come to you, and what exactly was the original message? Or is it the same as the one that is today?
I was brought up in a fundamental environment. It's kind of traditional Bible Belt kind of environment. But there was something inside of me that knew that there was another message that needed to come out that was more indicative of the diversity of people, diversity of culture, diversity of perspective. And I met a few people that led me to resources where I studied the Aramaic perspective of the scriptures for 4 years. And I was able to look at and see some different interpretations that allowed me to really have resonance with the message of Jesus and the kingdom message, and how love is certainly the supreme characteristic of the Most High God. And we went in that direction.
So now you get this message, and you're drawn to leadership, and you feel that that's kind of your path. And then you find these people that are kind of getting on board with that. And then at some point, though, it starts forming, walls, and it becomes building, and it becomes like a place. How does that transformation occur?
It takes on its own form and own personality, just like a child. A child kind of starts to think for themselves and starts to go in their own direction. You have to kind of get into a parental mindset to truly guide it and keep it true to the original mission.
And then how do you kind of, because you're kind of a conduit to the message, right? You're not you might be the face and the voice of it, but you're trying to build something that's larger than you. How do you kind of empower the others around you to take on the message as if it's coming from you?
Well, I have to stay empowered. I have to stay, entrenched in the discipline so that I can, have the passion and maintain that, so that when people hear the message, that they would have the resonance and they would be challenged to take the challenge.
So now you made, from growing up, this is different than what you experienced growing up. You were trying to create something that you wanted to have for yourself, I would imagine.
Well, I wanted to have something for everybody. I wanted to have something that that was not stringent, that was not man-made. I wanted it to be more spiritualized. When you think about church and religion, they're layered. You have the church's perspective, and then you have what's really there. When you learn the history and the customs and the different things about that time period, and you extract the teachings of Jesus, you find that this is the thing that we've kind of left behind. Everybody's talking about Jesus, but they're not talking about what Jesus talked about.
Right, and then doing the work that was done.
Yes.
Now, when you're attracting, so you're saying intergenerational, so that means young people as well as older people.
Yes.
And then
we have 4 generations in our congregation.
Now, is that unusual? Like, do some congregations kind of skew old or skew young, and it's rare to have kind of cross-generational activity like this?
It's rare to have a cross-generational group and be a plant church. Some churches that are historical, they have families that are there, and that church is a part of its family tradition. So you'll have the multi-generational group by default.
So now, how did you attract the young people and the millennials to the congregation?
Well, I have a Zoom that I call it the Real Talk with Millennials, and I'm developing a relationship with the millennial community through this medium. I'm getting to learn their perspectives on different issues, and it gives me an opportunity to serve as that surrogate parent to be able to instill values that they may not have received in their homes.
And then, what kind of values?
I would deal with the importance of effective communication. We deal with anger management. We deal with role expectations in relationships. We deal with finances, all these different things that I believe that will prepare them. I find that we have a great generation of millennials, but many of them are not prepared to deal with the stresses and the challenges of life and the pressures of life. They are very creative. They're very innovative. They're very strong, but they lack the intestinal fortitude in many cases. And this helps them, those that chime in.
Now, why do you think that is? Do you think that the parents aren't providing this for them and they need to hear an outside voice?
I think they need to hear an outside voice, and I think, unfortunately, because of the family structure today, there are a lot of single-parent homes, and as a result of the juggling act of that parent, a lot of the needs of practical skills are not being transferred.
And then when there is that kind of gap or maybe a vacuum a little bit, then the child might kind of be drawn to other kinds of leaders that maybe are negative and that aren't kind of putting them on the path, a more righteous path?
Well, they get drawn to themselves. This group is very innately strong. They're unbossed. They kind of define themselves. It's kind of a indignation that comes from them. There's a desire to pull away from what they have seen out of the mistakes of the previous generations, and they're saying, no, we're not going to experience these things like y'all did.
So now when you have these young people in this, I don't want to say vulnerable, but maybe a little untethered position, mm-hmm. How do you help them deal with kind of the crises that we seem to be in today, between COVID and the unrest that's going on nowadays? How do when you have a true north, it's, I think, sometimes easier to to kind of manage through crisis. But if you don't have a true north, it gets very challenging. So are you helping? Are you seeing that, number one? And then how are you helping?
Yes. One thing I've realized is that each generation has an introduction to this reality known as social injustice and those acts of that we despise. And, you know, the baby boomers had Emmett Till, and my group had Rodney King, and, you know, and there are other groups that had other experiences. And this group is being introduced to a fabric of America. And we have to take it and be sensitive to the fact that as they were born into this world, they didn't know about past unless they were taught about it. So as they're being exposed to these atrocities, it's our job to infiltrate, intervene, and create a trusting relationship so that we can guide them, their anger, their frustration, their confusion, and allow them to understand that there's a better way of dealing with these situations and processing it.
But isn't that a challenge in the sense that they're seeing the present and then they're kind of learning about the past, and they're saying that, hey, how come none of the past created that critical mass for change? Why are we still having similar conversations? They might not be exact, but they probably rhyme that we've had, you know, over the last, you know, hundreds of years.
Well, I think just the natural approach to anything like that is to be more so of retaliation, and let's you know, force by force and with force. That's just the natural inclination. But when you spiritualize the situation, you have to show them that that approach does not work. You don't have the military might, you don't have the support, you don't have anything that you need to be successful. Yes, if it was a military campaign, you know, America was built off of a revolution. But you cannot have a revolution in the streets with no strategies. You have to find a nonviolent, a peaceful, a kingdom-oriented way of confronting your enemy. Jesus gave us plenty of instructions on how to debase your enemy. And when we teach them that, then they'll go in that direction.
Now, are you finding that your congregation is embracing this?
Yes, they're embracing. They're embracing the kingdom message. I've been doing a series of teachings to orient people to those teachings that deal with those things specifically, like loving your enemies. You know, pray for those who despitefully use you and persecute you. They seem passive, but they get so many results because it allows God the opportunity to intervene supernaturally on our behalf.
Now, what are some of the initiatives you're working on to kind of evangelize this message outside the walls of your center?
Once again, with the youth, I'm dealing with the Zoom, with the Millennials. We are kind of dealing with two things. We're putting together a campaign called Immunity 2020. We want to deal with the COVID, get people more educated about the immune system and some of the things, herbs, whether they're natural or, just the basic standard of vitamins to help people prepare lifestyle for the fall and winter months so that we won't have the casualties of the COVID. I'm trying to create an initiative with other pastors and other spiritual leaders to create a support network and also develop strategies as to how we will non-violently deal with these issues that we're dealing with. I do support the economic boycotts that will be coming on July the 7th of this year. That will be an initiative that will ask all African Americans to not spend $1 for that day to show the economic power. Economics is how you get things done, not violence.
That'll definitely leave a mark, that's for sure. Before we wrap, Dedric, can you share the website for the center?
Yes. The website is sltcempowermentzone.com. That's empowermentzone.com.
And if what do you need right now? How can we help you? What do you need more of?
Just more relationship, community base, so that we can expand and reach more hearts and minds, that people change and they start to take more of a spiritual route in dealing with the conflicts and injustices of the world, more so than by force.
Well, Dedric, I appreciate you sharing your story today. It's an important message, and I hope more people come by and check out your website, check out your center, because you're doing important work. Thank you for that.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
All right, this is Lee Cantor. We will see you all next time on Atlanta Business Radio. And remember, we could not be doing this work without the support of our sponsor, OnPay. So please support them so we can continue to share these important stories.
Today's episode of Atlanta Business Radio is brought to you by OnPay. Built in Atlanta, OnPay is the top-rated payroll and HR software anywhere. Get 1 month free at onpay.com.